Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Princess Peach Showtime for the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we've essentially did manage to able to completely done everything, actually, for the likes of the majority of Floor 4. Not only did we somehow manage to able to went into a Kung Fu Tail, which pretty much leads us to the next transformation, which, as it turns out, we somehow turn into Kung Fu Peach. In addition to that, we also did manage to able to completely done with not only Act 2, but also with Act 3 for Detective Peach. So meaning about the fact that we've somehow tackled through the case of the Rainy Day plot, and of course the Dark Museum and the Purple Mystery. And finally, most notably, we also did manage to take down the fourth boss in the game, known as Spot Lion. Get it? Because of our fact that with Lion fused with the forms of the Spotlight, I guess that probably makes sense with that particular boss existence. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on throughout the game, and this time we now ended up in the fifth and probably the final floor in the entire game. Also, we think anyway, because relatively speaking now, it's about the fact that much like the forms of how it does on the previous floors, we're once again going to be able to actually focusing on two players for now, not what appears to be both Mighty Peach as well as Kung Fu Peach, strangely enough, because it's not too while ago since we actually turned into Kung Fu Peach, since enjoying forms within the second half of the forms within the fourth floor. So, relatively speaking now, let's get this thing started, shall we? Enjoying forms of Mighty Mission, The Rescue. So basically we're now on Act 2 when it comes to Mighty Peach. So that'll be pretty awesome, potentially speaking though. So as far as you probably already know, ever since Enjoying Forms have been 3 days ago, or technically 2 days ago actually, that recently me and Sonic are no longer together anymore. Mainly because no matter what though, we didn't spend too many times together, so as a result we somehow became friends now. So because of that though, and I think relatively speaking though, I'm sure about the fact that Amy Rose will able to actually just to find herself her true love. In some cases, Sonic the Hedgehog himself. Although, to be fair though, is about the fact that Sonic doesn't usually overly keen on love interest that much. But I'm sure enough though is about the fact that, well, potentially speaking though, them two will get along together eventually. So because of that though, yeah, I'm honestly going to be okay with that for me. So anyway, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that I believe today's date, of course, there is the 7th of May today. In some cases though, in 2024 today. Now I suppose I was surprisingly forgot to mention about, or should I say about the fact that I believe that Piglet has totally forgotten to mention about this ever since Enjoying Forms upon last Friday, specifically the 3rd of May, mind you. And that's what appears to be about the fact that for those of you who lived in Japan, that basically, well, suffice to say, happy 5th anniversary of the film's release of Detective Pikachu. And while looking back on it though, well, I will say it was actually pretty good, but I will admit though right away is about the fact that I'm pretty much used to watching both Sonic the Hedgehog movies with the films within the first film and the second film respectively, as well as the Super Mario Bros. Movie a lot more, just because then again, we're pretty much a huge diehard when it comes to not only Mario, but also with Sonic fans as well. So generally speaking though, because those two video game icons are the most iconic video game characters of all time, next to Pac-Man, and you name the rest of it. So anyway, there's also another thing is worth noting for as well, is that I believe in Journey Forms of this Friday coming up, that it will actually marks the 5th anniversary of the film's release of Detective Pikachu for the English versions, not only for the America, but also in the UK version as well. So I just want to classify that, and I'm pretty sure about the fact that Sonic will mention more about that if he goes back on to recently. For those of you probably wondering, ever since in yesterday, yes indeed, that Sonic has finally get a chance to able to do his Let's Play of the long-awaited game we're going to be doing for a Let's Play department, and that is of course Sonic Rush. And relatively speaking though, is it worth it? Well, I'm sure that he'll be happy to know that it is definitely worth it, especially noticeable because, well, despite the fact that he only just got started at first glance, so I'm sure enough though it's about the fact that he definitely needs to try to get used to with the forms of that particular recording setup, because believe it or not though, that the last time we actually did done the DS Let's Play was back in Journey Forms of Been last year, exactly last year, ever since in May, in Journey Forms of Been 2023, and as it turns out, we did somehow tackle through, I would say Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis, but that was played on Journey Forms of Been the Nintendo Wii U Virtual Console re-release version, because it's pretty sad about the fact that Sonic Rush never gets its re-release in Journey Forms of Been a Virtual Console lineup on the Wii U, because obviously though it's probably because of the forms of how the fact that the Wii U is actually a flop, which is pretty much standard stuff for the most part. And on top of all that stuff though, it's just about the fact that I'm pretty concerned about the fact that it doesn't seem able to have that much third-party support when it comes to Virtual Console games in mind, when it comes to in the Wii U system. But even then, that's as far as I can try to able to explain about this, I guess. So, anyway though, so yeah, let's just go ahead and grab this next Sparkle Gem after rescuing those people around here by trying to able to actually destroy a bunch of UFOs, so to speak. So, anyway, let's get into the forms of the next topic at this point, and relatively speaking though, is about the fact that recently, for I've also noticed about this as well, that not only we're able to actually celebrate, well, relatively speaking though, that recently during the forms of been a couple of days ago, not only we're about to celebrate yet another film anniversary just recently, but also another one too. And those are in questioning, which there are Avengers, Age of Ultron, and X-Men Origins Wolverine. So relatively speaking though, is about the fact I definitely heard about the films of X-Men Origins Wolverine, but I already know about the films of Avengers, Age of Ultron, thanks to the films of the Disney Plus subscription. So because of that though, yeah, you get the idea for that point. Oh, and speaking of the forms of streaming services though, it feels like that Netflix is actually in trouble at the moment, because as far as I'm aware, unfortunately though, just recently, that DreamWorks Ants has no longer going to be access onto Netflix in the US version. So because of that though, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate though, especially noticeable concerning for the fact that at least we still got some Netflix exclusives for the time being, and as far as the forms of other, like, films or series or shows or cartoons and all that for whatever reason is that those series are no longer going to be supporting for the sake of the Netflix department, which is a bit of a bummer though, because I will admit though right away, I did somehow manage to like Netflix from time to time, even though the only downside as far as I did somehow experience for myself, and that's what appears to be the menu starts to be lagging, and yeah, that's obviously no fun. And in addition to that though, is about the fact I feel like some selections are okay enough as it is. So relatively speaking though, that's as far as I can try to able to explain about this, I guess. So anyway, there's also another thing I want to point out as well, and that's what appears to be about the fact that I'm pretty concerned there's actually going to be yet another film is going to be on its way during the films of in 2026. So yeah, alongside with the films of Batman, or the Batman Part 2, as well as the upcoming new Mario movie, and also some other stuff here and there as well. And that's what appears to be by the forms of, oh boy, yet another live-action movie, which as a result, this time around though, is actually going to be Masters of the Universe. So yeah, that film is going to be releasing on June 5th in 2026 on the big screen. So, and as far as I'm aware, the last time they actually did this kind of stuff was back in Journey Films a long time ago, and obviously that film really blows back then, especially noticeable because of all this unnecessary amount of edits, or perhaps even maybe it was pretty underwhelming, and it also really disappoints the actual fan services when it comes to forms of able to experience Masters of the Universe anime cartoon series. At least, I did watch some bits of it though, although mind you, the actual dialogue is a bit cheesy, I will admit though right away, but for its time though, it was actually quite good, for I've noticing this already. In fact, recently, that me and Kermit the Frog did somehow manage able to invest watching that just recently, although before I get into more details about this, we have to do a lot of button mashing, and also we have to do a quick time event right here, just in case we can able to actually succeed this entire mission by simply blow up this entire UFO, and as a result, much like always, we get ourselves the glorious final sparkle gem in Journey forms within, well, in this entire stage. So everything else checks out there, basically. So either way, and also we somehow received the actual next ribbon for Stella, so this means we somehow got the mighty ribbon, which is actually likely a color of red or anything else like that. So anyway, so that pretty much does it for you know, Mighty Mission The Rescue. So, and obviously though, we were able to actually access to Act 3 now in Journey Forms within a basement floor. Oh, there's also another thing I want to pointing out as well. This is the reason why that this video took so long to able to actually get this thing uploaded. Mainly because, well, I'm afraid to tell you at this point, guys, we've once again come across into another technical issue when it comes to forms of the microphone. Or to be more specifically, the USB connection is actually gone pretty fragile, which as a result, because obviously for those of you who already know about this, ever since in Journey forms within Mario vs. Donkey Kong Switch Remake, thanks to forms of Starlight Glimmer, did somehow point things out as well, that obviously though, because of our laptop at the moment, is actually still in the second-hand condition, even though it's not in the best shape, and as far as I'm aware, the USB connections is pretty, you know what I'm saying, fragile. But anyway, let's move on to the next play, and that's what appears to be a Kung Fu Legend. So this means we're now on to Act 2, where it comes to forms of Kung Fu Peach. But then again, it's not too while ago since we actually come across into Kung Fu Peach, since in Journey forms within the previous floor, which is of course floor 4. So relatively speaking though, is about the fact that we can able to exponentially try to wrap things up everything for the likes of not only for Mighty Peach, but also with the forms of Kung Fu Peach as well. So yeah, that doesn't seem to be likely too surprising to say the least, but either way, so it's time to do some more combat here and there. So, and as far as I'm aware, I was expecting to try and able to actually tackle for those rehearsals eventually, but truth be told though, is about the fact I don't think it's possible we can able to actually tackle for those rehearsal challenges for the time being, because relatively speaking though, is that in order to able to actually access to the final rehearsal, which appears to be located in the 5th floor, something tells me we need to able to beat the game first. So because of that though, yeah, we're going to able to wait on that for a little while, especially noticeable because obviously though, we'll get into more details about the forms of the post-game content eventually later on. So because of that though, yeah, that's what I can really say about that. So, oh, and speaking of which though, is about the fact I've heard with the forms of some rumors out there that basically though is about the fact that one of those films in particular, which I was really looking forward to at first glance, and that's what appears to be by the forms of the Kingdom Hearts film, is going to be reportedly to be in the works. For not only because of the forms of how a factor with this film style is going to be likely also for not one, but 2 different styles, all in one particular film, which, mind you, is just a rumor after all. And apparently it did say live action / CGI hybrid, so it feels remarkably similar to not only Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but it's also with the forms of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. And on top of all that stuff though, there was also I would say Tom and Jerry the movie in 2021 perhaps. So mind you though, is about the fact that again it's just a rumor at the moment, so because of that though, sometimes I don't trust rumors and leaks anymore, but that's besides the point. And for I've noticing this already, I'm a little bit still felt a bit optimistic about this, especially noticeable because relatively speaking of the last time we actually went to see certain films based off for the sake of the forms of not only for its live action but also with CGI hybrid as well, and that honor goes to the forms of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, which somehow though is that I'm pretty sure that about the fact that that particular film is almost going to be 2 years old, until likely or so in later on in this month. So because of that though, yeah, we'll try to able to mention more about it of course, if Sonic were able to continuously mention more about it, if he goes back onto Sonic Rush. So because of that though, yeah, everything else will become to expect at this point. So either way, so it looks like we've met again with the forms of this particular main threat, enjoying the forms of this particular play, and because of that though, we must make our way to the palace itself, so that way we can able to save the Emperor. So anyways though, and every once in a while there's going to be a lot of horizontal bars, just like the forms of how it does it in Ninja Peach sometimes, except the fact that you can able to actually just to go ahead and time yourselves while simply trying to hang on to the horizontal bar. So relatively speaking, everything else will be pretty much accounted for when it comes to likely going from obstacle to obstacle, basically. Oh, I will admit though right away, the most annoying enemies in this particular play though, to me though, is with the forms of those guys in particular. They did somehow use those little sticks, which as a result, yeah, it's definitely a little bit annoying because they somehow blocked you right in front of you. So because of that though, it does kind of reminds me like a similar vibe as the forms of Dark Knights from the likes of the forms of The Legend of Zelda, not only for the sake of the forms of the orange variants, but also with the blue ones, which not only hit harder, but also takes more hits to kill. So relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that sometimes, I will admit though, certain enemies can be annoying to deal with. Well, for the most part though, they are not that much of a threat. So because of that though, I will admit though right away, I do apologize for my commentary because it's a little bit slightly awkward at this point today, because once again, my tongue is actually twistedly all of a sudden. So because of that though, because just like before, those flies are everywhere in our room at the moment. So I'm pretty sure I will ask Kermit the Frog were able to actually decide able to get rid of those flies for me, so just to ensure I don't get distracted by the forms of the actual specific noise in the background. So I'm pretty sure about the fact that he'll take care of those once I'm basically done with this, basically. So, and also, as far as I'm aware, since we actually did done the majority of Act 1 in journey forms of certain plays, every once in a while though, where it comes to the forms of not only in Act 2, but also in Act 3 as well, that we're about to start to be able to be collecting lesser amounts of those sparkle gems every now and then. So because of that though, like for instance, is about the fact that I think this might actually be to the point where the fact that we've almost nearly at the end, in terms of the forms of Princess Peach Showtime, which I will say, the actual progressioning system when it comes to the forms of trying to able to collect everything in this game is actually not too shabby, I will admit it though right away. I mean, certainly a lot more average compared to the forms of how it does it for Yoshi's Crafted World, because my goodness, in Yoshi's Crafted World, there's a lot of busy work. Like, you got to able to keep on collecting not only souvenirs, but it's also with the forms of some smiley flowers. They are quite well hidden for the most part, and I will admit it though right away, I'm still not a big fan of the soundtrack in Yoshi's Crafted World next to Yoshi's New Island, basically. So yeah, I still able to actually try to mention about that for the sake of time. So anyways, let's go down here to grab some more Sparkle Gem shards, and then once we grab them all, then obviously we'll get ourselves the glorious Sparkle Gem no matter what. So, well, it looks like we've made our way to the palace itself, so hopefully we should able to actually try to rescue the Emperor of all things. So, yeah, everything else will be come to expect. So, anyway, let's talk about the forms of the next topic at this point, and I'm surprised that Sonic has totally forgotten to mention about, I guess, and that's what appears to be about the fact that at some point in August, potentially, and that's what appears to be about the fact that it looks like we're about to be receiving the actual showcase in Journey Forms event sometime in August. Although, I'll get into more details about that in a moment, because here we go with the forms of this guy again, and this time he actually launches the actual projectile right back at us. And it feels like we're actually going to be experiencing Dragon Ball Z again, except the fact that it's likely a quick time event, basically. So, when the actual inner circle decides to able to close in to one another, and obviously though you have to press the button at the right time until when the actual sparkle star actually shows up, and that's it. But of course, it's not exactly the final time we're going to be experiencing Kung Fu Peach, because obviously though we still have to go through Act 3 now. So because of that though, yeah, it feels like we're now on to the halfway point in terms of the 5th floor already. So relatively speaking though, there's only 2 plays left, in journey forms within floor 5, and as of course, not only Figure Skater Peach, but also with the forms of Mermaid Peach as well. So I'm pretty sure it's been quite some time since we're able to actually experiencing not only Mermaid Peach since in the 3rd floor, but also with the forms of Figure Skater Peach since in the 2nd floor. So yeah, that's all I can really say about that, I guess. So, luckily though, we can still able to actually use the Star Lift after all, to make the actual fast travel not so much of an issue. So because of that though, yeah. So I suppose for now on, we can now able to actually focus on the basement floor now, so we can able to potentially try to do 2 more stages to able to actually tackle through, to able to actually go into the 3rd and the final act where it comes to certain plays. So, yeah. Nothing else I can really say about it, I guess. So, hopefully though, as soon as whenever we get to the later days, and I'm sure that Sonic will be able to come across into that issue as well. So, relatively speaking, though, is about the fact that I'm sure about the fact that Sonic will sort things out with the phones and the microphone if he goes back onto Sonic Rush and stuff like that. So, and hopefully though, we won't be able to come across into that stupid technical issue again, since in journey forms have been, I would say since in March sometime, so that's almost roughly 2 months ago, which I know for a fact that, like I said before, is that our USB connection is a bit fragile, because as far as I'm aware, we were expected to able to get ourselves a brand spanking new when it comes to the forms of that, you know, brand new condition for the actual laptop, but unfortunately though, we still cannot afford it. So because of that though, unless if, you know, Nintendo decides to able to announce something new eventually at some point. So because of that though, yeah, we can pretty much save that particular topic until, you know, God knows when. So anyway, so let's get into the forms of the 3rd and final act where it comes to Kung Fu Peach, because obviously though, I do manage to able to still enjoy the combat mechanics in journey forms of not only Kung Fu Peach, but also with Ninja Peach as well. So either way though, yeah, those enemies right there are pretty annoying to me though, because again, if you're trying to attack them from a front, they obviously instantly trying to get blocked from your attacks. So because of that though, you have to approach it from either to the side or behind them, although most of the time though, they never stop moving. So because of that though, because yeah, it does kind of reminds me of Dark Knights from the likes of The Legend of Zelda, basically. So anyway, so let's go in here for the next bonus room, so that way we can able to go from pole to pole, even with horizontal bars as well. That way we should get ourselves the, what else? The next Sparkle Gem. So, anyway, back into what I was saying about the forms of this particular showcase is about to happen during at some point in August. Specifically, I would say until the 2nd of August, as far as I'm aware, is that THQ Meteor showcase is about to happen in journey forms within the 2nd of August. So I think, as far as I'm aware, maybe they'll try to able to mention about the forms of some more gameplay details about the forms of Epic Mickey rebrushed if that showcase is about to happen. But I will admit it though right away, I don't think it's possible for me to able to actually get that game on the Switch version at least, mainly because, as far as I'm aware, that I'm pretty sure I'm about to save up for the sake of the forms of not only potentially the next Nintendo system, or perhaps even maybe because eventually at some point by the end of this month, potentially speaking though, I should probably able to actually guarantee to get myself not only Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, but of course with the forms of Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble as well. So yeah, you get the idea for that point. Also, I just realized I hate the hit detection right there, because I swear I wasn't exactly near to that particular attack right there, and then most of the time though, I just keep on getting hit by these guys. So because of that though, yeah, that wasn't going to be the final time we're going to be dealing with these guys on the other hand, because straight to the point that if we get to the post-game content, my goodness, we have to able to do a lot of combat button mashy kind of stuff. So because of that though, yeah, we'll save that particular topic if we somehow manage to get back into this particular stage again, or perhaps even maybe during the involved within Act 1 of Kung Fu Peach, as well as Act 2 of Kung Fu Peach as well. Although, to be fair though, as far as I just realized something, is that this entire stage is actually really short. Like, because of that though, all you have to really do is about the fact you have to beat all kinds of enemies around here, or specifically the rest of the Sour Bunch, as far as this is concerned. So even then though, is that, well, potentially speaking though, is that unlike Detective Peach level, specifically not only for Act 1, but also with Act 2 and 3. I will admit it though, those stages are very lengthy, mainly because you still ain't able to try to solve the mystery by trying to able to solve certain cases or clues and all that stuff. So it's almost like a puzzle level more than action-packed level like these kinds of stages. So anyways, as you can see on this ending sequence right there, in Journey Forms of this stage, is that we need to able to take down these duplicates of those evil spirits. So no matter what though, again, you have to able to get ourselves with the actual quick time events going, so just to ensure you can able to actually finish the job. And then once you think you're about to be done with this, well, we've got one more foe left. So because of that though, before you're able to actually rescue, I would say this is actually the 7th sparkler we can able to rescue from. So, and as far as I'm aware, we are almost done rescuing every single sparklers, basically. So because of that, though, because relatively speaking, that again, we'll explain more details about that particular stuff, and so to be more specifically, this coming Thursday. So because of that, though, and as far as I'm aware, I believe we've only got about 16 more days to go until Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake is going to be coming. Now, as far as what I believe, that Ray the Flying Squirrel has totally mentioned about this, or should I say, he's already mentioned about this ever since in Journey Forms of in Super Mario Advance Let's Play, that yes indeed, I did somehow found this particular comparison with the forms of this particular censorship when it comes to the forms of one of those in-game dialogues in between not only the original GameCube version, but also with the forms of the Switch remake as well, which then again, I'll explain more about that in a moment. So, oh geez, I just realized this particular scene is not exactly over yet, because as far as I'm aware, we're about to deal with this one final blow, and oh, I have to press it again. So I'm almost assuming that's going to be a quick time event again, but straight to the point, we somehow finished everything for the likes of Kung Fu Peach. And I will say though, this particular transformation is really awesome, at least as far as I'm concerned. So there we go, we somehow get ourselves the multicolored Kung Fu ribbon for Stella, so everything else should be good to go for the most part. So I believe we've now got about 3 more sparklers left, so as a result, then again, we'll save the final 2 for the likes of the next video, and join at some point on this Thursday, basically. Now, I'm really hoping about the fact that the actual video's length at the moment won't be nearly as long as compared to the forms of how it does on the previous parts, because then again, we have to do with 2 longish levels, which appears to be based off from Detective Peach. Although, don't get me wrong, it is actually kind of cool, but it's just about the fact I feel like that the level length is a bit very lengthy, So anyways, let's move on now to Act 3, where it comes to Mighty Peach, and we can able to potentially try to rescue Mighty Sparkler. So hopefully that will be the case. So anyways, as I was saying about the fact that there was actually that particular comparison I was on about, and that's what appears to be one of those in-game dialogue when it comes to both the GameCube and the Switch versions, is that about the fact that whenever you first began exploring through Rogueport sewers, and one of those Paragoombas is actually mentioned. In a GameCube version, he did say to Goombella, "What's up, baby? Why don't you hang with us for a while, and we'll play real nice?" Whilst compared to the forms of how it does on the Switch remake, it did replace the actual different dialogue, saying, "Typical, you selfish level snubs are so, let's just say, suck up. Ooh, I get to see the sun. I like the breath's clean air. Ooh." So, yeah, that's as far as I was going to be able to be saying about that. And I'm sure about the fact that for whatever reason, a lot of people seem to be complaining about it. Because obviously, though, they really do enjoy the adult humor here and there. Well, as far as I'm aware, because obviously though, in Journey Forms of every nowadays, sometimes any other dialogue needs to be replaced, especially noticeable they want to remove not only pop culture references, but it's also with the forms of adult humor as well. Like what they did for the likes of one of those specific lines in Super Mario RPG, likely also, compared to the original version, it did actually mention Bruce Lee, whilst compared to the Switch remake, it no longer says Bruce Lee in one of the dialogues in between. So, yeah, we got able to cope with the forms of the lack of adult humor, or even in some cases though, culture references or something. So either way though, it's kind of hard to say honestly, because I already know for a fact it's been about 5 days ago, potentially speaking though, because after the events of what, you know what I'm saying, that me and Sonic are no longer together anymore. But I'm sure enough though, like I said before, hopefully that Sonic and Amy will get along together, which I'm sure they will be, because they are both hedgehogs basically. So I'm sure enough though that will be the case. So now I'm sure enough though is about the fact that I'm might able to hang out with Kermit the Frog every once in a while, because he's also a frog. So either way though, well, I was able to try to get used to with this little squiggly arms or squiggly legs for the time being, but I'm sure enough though I'll try to get used to it, I guess. So anyway, enough about that particular romance story or anything else like that. So anyway, let's get into the forms of this particular stage right here. So anyway, so once again we have to beat this particular really weird octopus-looking robot right there to rescue one of the scientists right here. So that way we can able to actually continue proceedings, I guess. So anyway, also another thing I want to point out as well is that somehow that I've realized about something is that recently Knuckles, the series on Paramount Plus, actually sets platform records with over 4 million hours viewed, which I suppose that particular series is actually quite popular for the sake of the forms of Sonic fans alike, although I still find the series to be okay. But I will admit though, it's actually very impressive, whatever when the series was actually first broadcast, or not so much broadcast, but to be more specifically, when the series is actually finally came out. So because of that though, but I'm sure enough though, it's about the fact that we've only got about almost 7 months left until Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, is going to be around the corner almost. So, but I'm sure enough though, it's about the fact that Sonic and Amy, or even well, I've heard that Shadow will be very excited about this, potentially speaking as well. So anyway, oh, and by the way, something's worth noting for, what if I first got to this point, that for whatever reason I did somehow fail to quite a few times, because in order to able to actually get the Sparkle Gem on this part right here, you really cannot afford to able to actually get those enemies touch the machine, because otherwise, if you attempt to try to do that, then obviously though you're not going to get that Sparkle Gem, as far as I'm aware, because there's going to be one of those moments where certain Sparkle Gems needs to require when it comes to able to try to complete the actual specific sections perfectly, with no mistakes in the slightest. I will say the hardest one so far to me though, when it comes to trying to deal with the forms of perfect runs during some sections so far, that's what it appears to be during the forms of in the, well obviously in the third and final act, in regards to the forms of Cowgirl Peach basically, because I didn't exactly pay attention to what the forms of those specific barrel placements there are, but I'm sure enough though that again we'll be back for that particular stage eventually, and that could be also applies with multitude of playthroughs during the forms of the exact same stages as before. In fact, it kind of reminds me of the forms of the similar vibes as well, not just by the forms of Yoshi's Crafted World, but also with the forms of Sonic Heroes as well, and maybe also with the forms of Shadow the Hedgehog as well, and even with the forms of other like games I can probably think about on top of my head. But either way, we somehow rescued the forms of Mighty Sparkler around right here. But of course, we're not exactly done with this yet, because there is actually a bunch of meteors that is about to be getting closer to come towards us. So, yep, there's a whole bunch of meteors, including a massive, huge one as well. So we have to stop them before we get this entire place doomed. So, I'm sure enough that was about the fact that not only for me, but it's also with the forms of Mighty Sparkler will deal with the job. So, let's just get into this particular little thing right here. And sure enough, we'll become to infinity and beyond kind of stuff. So because of that though, yeah, let's just go ahead and deal with those bunch of meteors. So, and in fact, no matter what though, you can able to actually just try to attack them, including with the forms of those certain vehicles too. And eventually at some point, as soon as we get to this point right here, this is where we have to do a tag action. So it kind of reminds me of the forms of similar vibes as well, as in the forms of in a final boss, or should I say the true final boss in Sonic Advance 3, where Super Sonic needs to team up with Dr. Eggman to stop the actual, you know, the ultimate form for Gemerol, or Gemerol, or to be more specifically, Gemerol, most likely. Hard to pronounce, honestly, because I already know for a fact it's been about 3 years ago since we've last played. Sonic Advance 3, thanks to the forms of how Maxi did somehow already tackle for that game since in 2021, basically. So, oh boy, this is where we have to able to try to deal with a lot of timing aspects, and in fact, no matter what though, we somehow succeed by simply just go through, and, you know, trying to able to, oh, okay, I have to just do some more button mashing for the time being. So, yeah, there's quite a lot of button mashing I simply have to try to do around here. So, at least on the upside is that we no longer got to deal with the forms of those bunch of UFOs, at least for now anyway. So there we go, Act 3 for Mighty Peach is done. So yeah, not too shabby. So anyway, oh, I would have liked able to explain something else for this point for that matter though. Although, as far as I'm aware, there is actually technically one more thing I want to mention about this, is that, well, let's just say, as it turns out, according to Deadline, Disney's Wish had a net loss of $131 million, so as a result, it's now becoming the 4th biggest box office failure in joining films within last year in 2023. So no matter what though, it's now joined in with the films of the biggest box office failures, or even in some cases box office bombs now. So yeah, to go alongside with the films of Lightyear, and especially noticeable with any other films for that matter, like Onward, Turning Red, and as well as Luca, Soul, but that's just mainly because those particular films that somehow came out during the films of this whole pandemic year, which you pretty much already know what to expect. So because of that though, yeah, I don't think I can probably able to watch Disney's Wish after all, just because, well, my expectations is a bit low, especially noticeable because it does have a lot of questionable opinions for not only for fans, but it's also with certain audiences as well. So anyway, so I just realized I'm somehow almost running out of coins, but that's okay, because hopefully though, until later on anyway, actually I'm also able to choose the forms of that particular Kung Fu dress, because I'll admit though, it does look pretty cool, especially it kind of reminds me of the, you know, the Kung Fu Panda vibes. So I don't think there's anything else new for Stella's ribbon for that particular store, but that's okay though, because we can just simply change her different color in journey forms of the wardrobe menu by pausing the game and all that stuff. So in fact, no matter what though, let's go ahead and choose yeah, let's go for this particular Kung Fu ribbon. So just make things a little bit more interesting combination between both Peach and Stella. So anyway, so yeah, we somehow rescued 8 sparklers now. So we've only got 2 sparklers left. And suffice to say for this point, guys, is that we got endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Princess Peach Showtime. Is that we're about to go ahead and finish up everything for not only for floor 5, but it's also at the basement floor as well, by going to Figure Skater Peach and of course Mermaid Peach. So this will be exciting for the most part. So yeah, I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later, fellas.